and welcome to Own Your Peace. I'm your host, Andy Thewison, and today I am going to start with a question. What if the patterns you've been trying to fix are actually the keys to your superpowers? The gene keys teach us that within every shadow, there is a gift waiting to be remembered. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about understanding your soul's code. That is what Gene Keys is. It gives us a distinct kind of almost treasure map. It's helping us dig into some shadows and some things that we're meant to overcome in this lifetime. And as we do so, we activate gene coded sequences within ourselves, which unlock certain areas of our life. So I'm going to go through each of these activation sequences, kind of explain what they are, how to find those on your human design chart. I love Gene Keys. It's such a really deep program, but it can be super complicated and it is a lot. It is truly a lot. I really understand human design, I understand astrology, and Gene Keys is a whole nother level. It's like swimming in the depths of the ocean because there is so much information to be had from it. And it's a lot. So I'm going to try and kind of bring it down to bite-sized pieces so that you can really understand how Gene Keys works and understand why it's important and why it can really help you step into some new levels within yourself and then unlock untapped potential within yourself. That's why I call Gene Keys the treasure map. I always talk about human design being your owner's manual. How do you best operate on an energetic level? And then astrology is really your roadmap, where you're going to go through, where you're going to have bumps in the road, where some things that are going to help you on your path throughout your lifetime. And then we have transits that are going to, shake things up for you and how to navigate those. And that's how astrology really works and how I use it within my own practice. And then we go to Gene Keys, which we're going to talk about in this episode, of this beautifully rich treasure map where we're diving into some of the depths, some of these gates that hold a lot of information, a lot of shadows, and how to kind of overcome those and work through them. And it is such an amazing program. So I'm really not here to overwhelm you. I'm just here to help you start unlocking the potential of that treasure map. So let's talk about the beginning. What are Gene Keys? So Gene Keys are based on the 64 gates within human design. And the gates are based on the Chinese I Ching. So that's how those kind of things all tie together. And then within every gate, it can be broken down even more so. So every gate is going to have the shadow, and that is the fear-based side of that gate. Then there's that gift that we kind of overcome the shadow, and then we get into the gift of it. And that's using creative alchemy, trying to transmute the shadow into the light. And then we can go even a step further. And that's when we step into true enlightenment, true embodiment of that particular gate. And that is considered a siddhi. So then we move into that alignment of the siddhi. And that's how that progression goes. We even take it a step further within Gene Keys. And then you'll notice that every single gate in your human design chart, if you're looking at the subconscious side and the conscious side, we're going to break that down even more so. There's going to be a decimal point with a 0.1, a 0.2, a 0.3, a 0.4, all the way up to 6. And those are the lines. That's where your profile lines come from. But even with every single gate, it's going to have that information. So that even gives you a deeper depth of understanding as we break these gates down in Gene Keys. So there is so much here. There are specific themes that you're meant to embody, and we find those themes in those decimal point numbers. That's where the theme comes through. So it is really cool. So we start with the activation sequence, and that is really stepping into our purpose, why we're here, what we're meant to embody. And then we step into the Venus sequence, which is really our emotional inner world and really how we show up within relationships and also relationships with ourselves. And then we move into the Pearl sequence, which is all about our branding and how we step into prosperity. So there are these very key activations, and we need to move in order. So we really need to lock in that activation sequence and really understand that and really contemplate that. And then we move on to that really rich information of the Venus sequence. And then we move on to the prosperity sequence. And each of these things have so much depth of information. If you have done a gene key reading with me, you know that the Venus sequence, it can get a little rowdy, if you will, because it talks about our sexuality, how we move through that, how we can heal through that, how we show up within that area of our life, and how we process that. So, and it talks about inner child and, maybe some inner child wounds. So there is so much deep information within that Venus sequence. It can get kind of heavy. So, as you're looking at your human design chart, I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit for you, because where the information for your gene keys comes from is from your human design chart. So, when you're looking at your human design chart, you're going to have numbers all down the left and numbers all down the right. The numbers on the left are going to be your design placements or your unconscious placements. Those particular planetary placements are based on 6 months gestation or 3 months prior to birth. And according to human design, that is when the soul fully incarnates into the body. And those are going to be unconscious placements. And I say that because these are things that you do without actually thinking about it. They're on that unconscious level. If you've done a reading with me, you've heard me talk about it. It's kind of like that DOS operating system. It really, nobody knows what it does, but it definitely runs the show. So that's how those unconscious placements play out. People in your life will be more aware of those placements than you are, because again, you're doing them without thinking. They're on that internal subconscious programming that you've got going on in the background. And then on the right over there, those are your personality placements. So those are the planetary placements at the date and time of your birth. Those gates indicate what is being configured on that subconscious level. So that's important to know. So the conscious placements on the personality side are going to be more front and center. You're going to be way more aware of them. As I'm talking about this, this placement's based on this and this placement's placed on that, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from all the gates lined up on your left and on the right of your body graph on your human design chart. You can also go to genekeys.com and create a Gene Keys map with all these placements for you. So that's something that's really cool to take a look at as well. Let's start with the first sequence, which is the activation sequence. And again, this is stepping into life. This is stepping into your life's work and really how you're meant to embody that. So this is your kind of core stability, if you will, within yourself. And again, that life purpose. So it starts with the first sphere, which is based on your conscious sun. So remember, your conscious sun is the top one on your right. And this is where you're here to radiate. So whatever that gate is, that is such an important one to look at. It ties right into the incarnation cross. When we talk about that, is really a lead energy that you have. It's where your sun shines. It's where you're meant to be the most verbose. It's where you're most meant to radiate that energy out in the world. So for example, my life's work is in gate 39. So gate 39 for me, it's the gate of provocation. It is the gate of knowing how to ask the right questions to get people to see things in a new way. So I'm meant to push buttons a little bit. I'm meant to make you question things so that you can step into higher states of consciousness. So for me, I'm meant to stir the pot a little bit. By doing so, I help you to see new things you might not have seen before. The lower frequencies of that, the shadow frequencies of that, is pushing buttons to push buttons, being kind of irritating to those around you. And have there been times in my life where that has been how that showed up for me? 100%. And now I step into it knowing fully well that I am intuitive to how to ask the right questions to get you to where you need to go. Because if I just tell you, it's not going to be as impactful if you start to unpack it and see it for yourself by my line of questioning. So that's really how I do that. And the more that I step into positions where I'm sharing that gift and I'm using it in all that I do by asking questions, getting you to journal, getting you to see things in a new light, the more I shine. So keep that in mind as we're moving through these. Your evolutionary sphere, again, on that conscious side is that conscious earth. And it looks like a little circle with a grid in it. So you'll see that. And that's your conscious earth. This is your core challenge. This is how you're meant to grow. So this is going to be an area that kind of feels a little bit challenging, but because of this challenge, you're going to have your biggest breakthroughs. It's going to be where you really do a lot of work, where you dive into the shadows of that evolutionary spirit. And because you do so, you're able to unlock so much breakthrough. For me, my breakthrough gate, my evolutionary gate is in gate 38, which is standing up during a argument, or really kind of knowing when to step up and assert yourself. And also it is like this ability to stay calm under pressure. I am really good about the staying calm under pressure when like crap hits the fan, everything's chaotic. I know exactly what to do. It's almost like a light switch is turned on with that gate 38. But standing up for myself and standing up for something I believe in a very public forum is a little bit scarier for me. And it is a lot of like, oh, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I should do that. So that's something that I'm constantly, full transparency and full honesty, is something I'm working on. Sometimes it's hard to be contradictory in a world that crucifies being different. Really, if you're against the status quo, like there's so much to unpack with that gate for myself that I really do spend a lot of time working on it and trying to be more brave and more brazen when sharing my messaging. So this is an evolution. This is something that is going to take time, and it's going to take me continually working on it throughout my lifetime. The gene keys is not something that you just read one time and immediately you're like, I got it all dialed in. I got this all figured out. It's going to be this process of continually learning and unpacking and unraveling bits of yourself as you step into these things. And now we move into the radiant sphere. And radiant sphere is like, if you do this thing, it's how you glow, it's how you shine. It is such a empowering gate to look at. So, your radiance gate is that unconscious sun. So, it's going to be opposite on that left hand side. And this is where your vitality and your health are. It's how you are meant to glow. So it is a really cool one to look at, because this is really your key to your health and vitality, is that unconscious sun. So when we look at the unconscious sun, it is something that is going to be very helpful for you to know how your radiance is. And for me, I guess there is a lot of work that I need to be doing for this, because my unconscious sun is all about the shock factor. It's gate 51. So I'm here to kind of like push buttons again, like get you to see things differently, kind of say some shocking things that, kind of put you like, oh, whoa, did she just say that? Because that shock factor, that impact factor will help you to raise into higher levels of consciousness. Again, growing up as a polite person who was, best seen and not heard, and really like keeping my voice quiet for so long because I didn't want to ruffle feathers, really did eat at me on a lot of levels within my health, even. So for me, I'm not for everyone. And I have to truly understand that I'm meant to kind of upset people. I'm meant to push you to see things in a new light and really not pressure you, but help make an impact in your life. So you're stepping into these higher frequencies and these higher vibrations that are available to you. But that means saying things that you might not want to hear, and helping you see things that you're not seeing for yourself. So that's my radiance. And the more that I'm able to help wake you up by making an impact in your life, the more I radiate, the healthier I feel. That's why I love one on one coaching. That's why I love doing this podcast. It's because these things help me to use my gifts in a way that help you, but also help me to step into my radiance. So it's kind of fun how all these things tie together and they unlock and they help. So your purpose spear is your unconscious earth. So looking on that opposite side on the left, it's going to be that circle with the grid in it. And that's your unconscious earth. So this is what grounds your soul. It's your inner foundation. And, just to give you an example here, mine is gate 57, which is the fear of the future. We've talked about gate 57 in past episodes, but gate 57, the fear side of that is the future tripping, worrying about worst case scenarios. The gift of this gate is that I am able to tap into and see how things might play out. I do have that psychic gift when it's in alignment, when I am doing life right. But it's amazing how we move through these. So we move through that shadow. The shadow side is me being scared to death about the future and future tripping and building out worst case scenarios in my brain. And for a really long time in my lifetime, I would worry. And I would worry about all kinds of things. And what happens when you worry about something constantly over and over and over again, you begin to create that for yourself. So I would manifest, if you will, these worst case scenarios by doing just that. So now I have to overcome that fear. And I really have to constantly be stopping myself when I'm in those loops of worst case scenario and coming back to the gift of this and being super present. The more present I am, the more grounded I am at any given moment, then I'm really paying attention to where my mind's at. I'm really paying attention to what I'm creating with my worrying and with my freaking out and my spiraling. I bring it back to present. I'm like, you know what? Right now, we're good. Everything is wonderful right now. And who's to say that tomorrow everything just keeps getting better and better and better the next day? And stop creating these timelines of fear. So these are kind of ways that we can use this activation sequence. So the more we really tie into these things, we learn what activates our soul. And that is what that first sequence is that series of activating that sequence. The next sequence is your Venus sequence. I'm not going to go in as a depth about the Venus sequence because I want you to, first of all, I don't overwhelm you. It's a lot. And, it really is this hierarchy system. So once you dial in the activation sequence, then we go to the Venus sequence. We get that all tied up and, worked on and really spend a lot of time contemplating it. And then we can move to the prosperity sequence. Everyone wants to jump right to the prosperity sequence. And it doesn't mean that you can't look at it 100%. I actually really like to look at it, especially a couple different spheres within that prosperity sequence, because it does help us understand how we should be presenting ourselves and branding ourselves. So when I'm working with clients who are trying to build a personal brand, or they're trying to build a business, or they're trying to work on building something, I really do like to look at those spheres because they help me understand how they should be doing that and how they will be best received within that work. But again, we can't circumvent it. We still need to do the work of the activation sequence. We still need to do the work of the Venus sequence. These things are all tied together, but we can sneak peek ahead and kind of start working with those energies if you're in building of a business era of your life, if you will. Okay, so now moving on to the Venus sequence. So there's 4 spheres within the Venus sequence. So it starts with the attraction sequence. So what are you attracted most in a partner? What are you looking for in a partner? And again, this is going to be based on your subconscious moon. So it's going to be on that left side. And the subconscious moon really ties into what are you attracted to? What are you wanting in a partner? And then the decimal point here is really kind of cool because it talks a lot about your sexuality and how you work with love within your life. So there can be all these different ways of doing so. There's like lust and passion. It's an interesting one to look at. And for those that I have work through the sequence with, there's a lot to unpack about understanding yourself, and it's super powerful. All right. And then we move to the IQ, which is the ancestral intelligence. You might see it as AQ or IQ. Those are kind of interchangeably, depending on where you pull your map at. But this is based on your conscious Venus. So this is ancestral wisdom. And it's also how your mind works. So these are really kind of cool things to look at there. And then we move over to the emotional EQ sphere. And this is all about your emotional intelligence. Best way to explain the EQ is it's your teen years. It's how you process emotions within your teen years and how you kind of hide from emotions and dealing with your emotions. Where do you check out and how do you mask? Are some really cool things that we look at with that EQ spare. So, again, this is emotional intelligence. It's based on your conscious Mars and whatever gate that's in. And then we end with the spiritual intelligence. And this is based on your subconscious Venus. So, your subconscious Venus is going to tell you a lot about your core needs in early childhood. So, like that EQ is more like your teen years, where the SQ, spiritual intelligence, is those inner, really on a depth level, on a spiritual level, what do you need most to feel fulfilled? So that is the Venus sequence. We spend a lot of time here because there is a ton of really deep information to go through. And again, we have that, it's going to have a number and then it's going to have a decimal point, and each decimal point dives into a completely different realm of understanding. So it is a very rich sequence there, and there's so much to be had there. So these are things that we can look at as we're moving through, and within every sphere, it's going to be the same. There's going to be that decimal point, which helps you understand how you're meant to navigate that particular sphere. There's the actual gate. And then within that actual gate, we have the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. That is that enlightenment. How do we get to the highest level of that gate? So these are all things that we're unpacking as we move through each of these sequences. And then the last sequence, which is one that I kind of like to sneak peek into, especially when I'm working with people who are building a brand or building a business, and the vocation spirit. This is based on your subconscious Mars, letting you know where to find that. And subconscious, remember, is always on the left. Conscious is on the right. So that subconscious Mars, this is your vocation. This is what work you're meant to be doing within your realm. And then we move to the cultural sphere, which is based on your subconscious Jupiter. What are you meant to bring to the collective? What are you meant to bring to the culture of humanity at large? So when we're looking at branding, how are you meant to deliver on a cultural level? What is it that you bring to the table? So those, again, some really cool things to look at when we're talking about building a brand, because when we do this in the right way, that's where we unlock more prosperity for ourselves. And then we move to the pearl sequence. This is the last one. And this is kind of almost like where you are meant to brand yourself, how you're meant to brand yourself, how you're meant to put yourself out there. And this is your conscious Jupiter. So your conscious Jupiter placement is going to really kind of tell you how you're meant to brand yourself. For example, mine is in gate 33. Gate 33 is the gate of summation. So when I brand myself of taking really complicated things and I break it down so that it is easier for you to understand, gate 33 is a very strong teaching gate. It helps you to break things down that people have a hard time understanding. And you're like, okay, whoa. That was a lot. Let's break it down to these main key takeaways. And here's the actual what you need to know. And that is how I'm meant to brand myself. And that is where I step into more abundance when I do that. So what am I doing? I'm doing a podcast where I'm breaking things down in the spiritual terminology that you're having a hard time understanding. Human design is a really complex program. Astrology is a big complex program. Gene Key is very complex. And what I try to do is I try to simplify it, and not only just simplify it, but like make it so that it is easy and user friendly. So you can take this information and now create change in your life. There's nothing more important to me than when I'm sitting down with a client, whether that be a reading or coaching. I don't want you to just listen to amazing things about yourself for a couple hours while we're doing a reading and then walk away. I want you to be able to walk away from a reading with me and have really good, strong, tangible things that you can do and understand on how to shift and change your life. That is my whole entire goal. So I love that my pearl is doing that. And then I have a 0.5. So I do that as a messenger. I do that as a from a power standpoint of allowing myself to be seen as the expert in that area. So when I allow myself to let go of all my imposter syndrome and all the ways that I don't think I measure up, or there's a million people who know more than I do, all the things that get in our heads. I'm not alone in this. We all have it, no matter how accomplished we are. There is going to be that, voice in the back of our head that's telling us we're not good enough. And full transparency, that voice gets in my head too. And sometimes I choose to believe it and it kind of knocks me off center. And other times I'm like, you know what? Cool, cool, cool. I'm glad you're here. I see you, but I'm not going to allow you in today. I'm going to just keep doing the work that I'm super passionate about and that I absolutely love doing. Anyone who goes out to dinner with me or hangs out with me as a friend knows that this is my life. They will sit and ask me questions at dinner and I'm just like answering it. And I love it. I love bringing these things into everyday conversation. And again, this is something I'm super passionate about. And when you're super passionate about something, people can feel that and they can feel that from you. So, what I love doing is helping you find those things for yourself. Where are you most passionate? Let's figure out a way to make it profitable. Let's kind of roll up our sleeves and create a plan. And that's what I do with my Pearl sequence is I help take all these really hard programs and I use them, boil them down and figure out a plan on how to take action with these things within your life. That's what's kind of cool about it. So I love looking at these different spheres within our life and how they work because they really do. How to work with these shadows because every single gate has shadows. It's not this need to fix yourself. It's just to become aware of. Shadows aren't flaws. They're survival patterns. For most of our lives, we have been in survival mode. That's how we're programmed to live. We have been programmed to think that life is hard, that life is heavy. Like we're never going to get far in life unless we really, really struggle throughout life. And I think for most of our lives, that has been true. And that has been the reality. But things are shifting. We're moving into more light sequences are coming to Earth. More things are shifting. The astrology is pretty crazy right now. And we're stepping into this new paradigm of time where there isn't as much struggle, there isn't as much lack and scarcity. And I know I say that, and I know so many of you are in the reality where you are still very much in lack and struggle and you're looking around. We've got an economy that is all over the place. It's hard to believe that we're meant to move beyond this. But that is where intentionality needs to happen. We need to stop looking at everything outside of ourselves, really focus on our own inner alignment, our own interregulation. We talked about this last week with the moon sign and the week before that. The more regulated we are, the more we are really within ourselves and not looking at all the chaos around us. We're really just grounded in the now moment. We're grounded and we're connected to source, to God, to universe, whatever speaks mostly to you. And we're grounded in that energy. Then we start creating a new life for ourselves. We create a new reality, and the energies are here to support that. They want us to move out of this lack and scarcity, out of this struggle bus syndrome we've been in, into this new paradigm that's coming on board of thriving, of being highly successful, of being highly prosperous and very abundant. But it starts with choosing different. It starts with choosing a whole new different choice for yourself. And the more we use these tools like astrology, like human design and gene keys, as we're talking about today, these are things that help us to step into these higher timelines by clearing the shadows, by clearing these things out. We're here to meet our shadows with compassion. It's natural for us to look at these awful, icky things about ourselves that we judge so harshly. But remember to meet those judgments with so much grace, with so much love, because those things that we hate about ourselves were exactly what we needed to create to survive whatever was placed before us up to this point. But now we're getting to a point where we can let those go. We need to choose to leave those shadows behind, to choose that what has defined us up to this point in our lives does not need to define us moving forward. And that is what this whole process of facing our shadows and seeing these things for ourselves. And as I go through these gates within your Gene Keys map, we talk about what those shadows are. How could they be presenting to you right now? Let's look at them. Let's dive into them and let's see how we can see them in a new light. The biggest thing when it comes to working with the shadow side of any of these gates is contemplation. It's not fixing. We're not here to fix. We're not rushing. We're just noticing. We're noticing how these little shadows within that gate start to show up. So, like going back to my evolutionary spear gate of gate 38, where am I staying quiet when I know I need to stand up? Where am I allowing myself to not be fully invested in saying what needs to be said? And I start to notice these things. And then I start to think about why I can't stand up for myself or why I choose to remain silent when I know I need to say something. And I start to get curious. Curiosity is such a powerful tool when we're working with our shadows. There's no judgment, there's just curiosity. Okay, well, when I've said my piece in the past, it's blown up in my face. Okay, that's something to look at. If I continually would put myself out there and it was only met with shame or guilt, there's a reason why that fear's there of me standing up for myself. But could I choose to look at those things with complete honesty, with complete curiosity, and complete contemplation? And it's just this is where journaling is a really cool tool that you can look at. We can dive in a little bit deeper there. And that's how we see these things and we start to unpack them and we start to have compassion for them. And just because I've had bad experiences with, things blowing up in my face when I spoke my piece in the past doesn't mean that has to be the future. So look at your shadows. Look at each of these particular gates that we talked about, these different placements within your human design chart. And like I said, if you can go directly and pull that Gene Keys map. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can easily find where to get that Gene Keys map. I wish I had that, on my site, but I don't have that. There's a lot of licensing rights around the Gene Keys program. But with that being said, these are some really beautiful things to work at. And this takes time. The most important thing to keep in mind with Gene Keys is it is a slow paced situation. It's very common to sit with a gate and looking at the shadow, looking at the gift, looking at the siddhi, and sitting with that one particular gate, like starting with life's work and spending like a month just really sitting with that gate. What does it mean for you? How is it showing up in your life? How are you not stepping into it? Where are you holding back? These are some important things to think about when we're looking at these particular gates. No, it's not necessarily a fun process, but we're just kicking these ideas around. We're being open to what our guides bring through, some information that comes through. And again, if you want to work one-on-one, those are things that I can help with for sure. Gene Keys is meant to be a program or a set of things to look at throughout our lifetime, something that we evolve into over time with that process of contemplation and really using these things on our day-to-day life. There is no quick hack. This is soul work. It takes time. We're not going to rush through this. It's not a race. There's no t-shirt or a prize being given if you get there first at the end. It is start with the activation sequence, start with that life's work sphere, and then we move to the evolutionary sphere, then that radiant sphere, and then that purpose sphere. So just take each one, drink it up, live with it for a little bit before you move on to the next. This is a whole process and it is a beautiful thing. It takes time. Answers will come to you over time. This is a lifelong thing. This is not something that you're going to be able to conquer within a few years. This is life's deep work. And the more we spend time with it, you could spend a couple, months on each one and then circle back and start all over again. And new things will start to come to you as you're doing this. The work deepens over time. Each gate will get deeper and more meaningful to you the more that you spend this time doing so. So this is such a beautiful program and it's hard to really go into the depths of it. And I try to keep these episodes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I like to keep them kind of on the shorter side because there's so much. It can be really overwhelming to listen to like 2 hours of me talking about this. And I really do want this to be bite size so that you can sit with it and then start to take action in your life. So go download your Gene Keys map or circle these placements that I went over on your human design chart because you'll be able to find them easily there too. You don't have to have the Gene Keys map. You can absolutely just look at your human design chart, which you can get on my site. I'll put that link there, and then you can just circle those gates. I did put together a little Gene Keys map worksheet. That's a quick little, just you can go through and write in these things, a couple little journaling prompts. That is free. I will put that in the show notes that you can grab that and go back and kind of compare that to your human design chart. So if you're like, trying to take notes during this whole podcast and you're like, oh, that was a lot, like I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again. I got you. There's a little worksheet where you can just take that and find them on your human design chart, and you can work with those journaling prompts that I provided. Your shadows, more than anything, they are not meant to be shameful. They are sacred. They hold the seeds of your genius. Keep that in mind. Your shadows hold the seeds of your genius. You crafted the fear and the shadows of yourself to survive. Now we're going to seed those in fertile soil so that you can thrive. So I love how we're switching this up a little bit. So I invite you to explore your profile. Send me a message if you have any questions at all. Then we can dive into these things together. If not, we've got that worksheet that is super helpful for you. And I hope that you really settle into Gene Keys. And if you've looked at Gene Keys and picked up a book or have done any studying at all and were immediately overwhelmed, I get it. It is a lot of information. It is such a highly intellectual program that it is easy to get overwhelmed. So I get it if you're like immediately like, oh, wow, that was too much. Let's make it easy. Let's make it really adaptable so that we can start to use these tools to move forward with our lives. That's what I've got for you today. Much love, and I will see you next week.